I appreciate it.
All
Lori
right,
also
it's
covered
7
me.
o'clock.
7 o'clock.
On January 24th, 2022, I'd like to call a meeting of the Budget Review Committee to order, 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber and via Zoom, which the meeting link can be found on the agenda. Even though you're not officially clerk, could you call the roll, Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alderman at Large Laurie Wilshire.
I'm here.
Alderman John Sullivan. Here. Alderman at Large Shoshana Kelly.
I'm here.
Alderman Ernest Jetty.
Here.
Alderman John Cathy. Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien is present. And our chairman, Richard A. Dowd.
Present.
Okay, also in attendance, we have Kim Kleiner on Zoom, Director of Community Services. Also in attendance are Alderman Alex Como and Alderman at Large Gloria Timmons. Also in the gallery tonight is Daniel Alexander of National Association of School Administrators and Supervisors.
There's somebody by the name of Alderman. I don't know if that's an Alderman that just didn't put their name.
Oh, yeah.
You're here.
And I'm here, yes.
Okay. Welcome.
My apologies.
Let the record show that Alderman John Cathy has shown up.
Okay.
And Alderman Clee.
Excuse me. And also Alderman Clee is also in the presence in the chamber.
There is somebody online
Yes,
with the name
and
of Alderman.
Alderman Theobald is also present in the chamber.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, there's also someone online named Alderman, so I don't know if that's just an Alderman that didn't put their name in.
I think that it's Como.
No?
Well,
Alderman
who's
Como's
online.
named, yeah. There's one that actually says just Alderman.
I think that's the clerk's screen.
Clerk screen.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, we're taking a roll call. First item on the agenda is public comment.
Yes, good evening.
Oh, hang on. If you want, you'll be
Hi.
able to speak when we introduce the legislation.
That's fine.
Yep, so you don't have to do it now.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes? Oh,
We have to elect a clerk.
Alderwoman Kelly?
That's what I was gonna say.
What?
Don't we have to elect a clerk?
I know, that's not on the agenda yet.
Oh. We did it at the
Next.
top of most meetings.
All right, so again, public comment.
I think Mrs. Ortman.
There's no one in the chamber, so
Hello?
yes. Ms. Orlando?
Yes. For some reason, I'm having a difficult time hearing you. The audio is breaking up. Maybe though. Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I was wondering if the Budget Committee has any means or mechanism to track the ordinance that was passed to allow folks who go out on sickness due to COVID to not have to use their sick days.
Yeah,
I was
we
just
can't-
at the police commissioners meeting and, hello?
We can't talk about that at this meeting, it's not on the agenda. And you're breaking up, so it's hard to hear what you're saying.
Yeah, hard to hear what you're saying as well. I can't talk about it until the second public comment, is that what you're telling me?
No, it's not on the agenda. It's not
You have a-
before the Budget Committee, you can talk about it tomorrow night.
Well, wait a minute, don't you have a second public comment at the end?
Yes.
Let me check.
Yes, you do.
Yes? That you could probably bring it up.
Well, that would be exactly how it would be done there, so, and I will do it at the end, thank you.
All right. So the next item is election of a clerk. Do I have a motion? Alderman Wilshire?
I move to nominate Michael B. O'Brien Sr. as clerk of the Budget Review Committee.
Okay, Alderman O'Brien. Do I hear a motion? Is anyone else? Do I hear a motion to close nominations?
Move to close nominations.
Okay. Motion is to close the nominations. Everyone's here, so we can do it by voice vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And I thank you all.
We haven't
I
voted
thank-
on you yet.
Oh,
Now we'll vote to
okay.
make Alderman O'Brien the service clerk for the 2022-23 term on the Budget Committee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now you're officially.
Now I thank you. I thank you.
Okay. So, communications?
Excuse me, 1 second.
Good enough.
Communications, there are none.
Unfinished business?
There is none.
New business resolutions?
Before us this evening is R-22-001, approving the cost items of the collective bargaining agreement between the National Board of Education and the National Association of School Administrators and Supervisors, American Federation of School Administrators, AFL-CIO, from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024, and related transfers. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the motion to recommend final passage.
Not by roll call, no.
Don't need roll call.
Okay, you want to come up, take the seat? And
Maybe Mr. Lopez's seat would be the best.
so, since there are new members on budget and we're doing this contract, I just want to give a couple guidances. We did not negotiate the contract, so the only thing we can do with the contract is vote it up or vote it down based on cost. The only things we can discuss are cost items. Any of the other paragraphs, we don't have any control over. So we don't have any control over the financial part either. So in the end, when we take a vote, it's either yes or no. Any questions on that? Alderman Sullivan?
I had questions because there are some items in the contract that are redlined. What does that mean? Do we have an opportunity to discuss those or reject those cost items?
If it's a cost item, if you have a question, I have already circled the ones that are actual cost items. So if you tell me which paragraph it is, he's gonna go through it.
Sure,
But if it's not a cost part, no.
okay, okay.
Yes,
Point of clarification, not all the red items are cost items, correct?
right.
But we're only talking about the red items?
We're only talking about the red items that are cost items.
Right, but underneath red, just
So-
cost. So red first would be the limiting principle, and the second limiting principle would be just the cost items of whatever's red.
Right.
Okay.
For instance, I mean, there are red items that change the people signing the contract.
Right, okay.
You know,
Thank you.
And,
Well, perhaps maybe you should explain the other board, the school board is the authority.
right, so
Yeah.
this contract is negotiated by the Board of Education and their attorneys. It comes to us for cost approval. And I also want to mention that the monies that are also in line to be shifted as part of this have already been allocated from the school budget into contingency. Now we're just taking out a contingency and putting it back in the school budget so they can pay the contract. Are there any questions on that? So there's no addition whatsoever to the budget as far as dollars are concerned. The dollars were already passed in the 22 budget. And when we move the money from contingency to the school department, it's to cover if the contract's approved.
I have a question.
Yes, Alderman Sullivan.
In subsequent years following this year, since that budget hasn't been approved yet, then those numbers, those dollars will be factored in as we go forward, I assume.
Those will be in the school budget. The school department's already said that they will put that in their budget for the 2 out years, or the 1 out year, actually, I think, 2 out years. So, and that becomes part of their budget. And then, again, on the school board's overall budget, again, we only have authority on the bottom line. Because once we transfer the money to the Board of Education, the school department, we lose all control over it. They have the authority to spend that amount of money. All right?
Thank you.
Okay. If you'd like to introduce yourself and why you're here and
Yes, so my name's Dan Alexander. I'm the president of NASAS, as well as an administrator for the National School District. My role there is the assistant director of special education. I've been president for 2 years. I'm happy to say that this contract, proposed contract, is a 3-year contract. It'll be the first long-term contract that our union has had since its inception 4 years ago. We have about 65 members. At our meeting this year, we had 30 members, and we had a quorum, and we voted 26-4 in favor of this contract. It would, before the Board of Education on December 20th, I believe, and there were 8 members there. 1 left before the end of the meeting. The 7 remaining members all voted 7-0 in favor of the budget. Changes that we made, you see in the contract, I know there's questions about red line and things of that nature. We moved to a salary schedule, so all of our positions are based on labor grades now, and we'll have a step system in place for people to be hired at certain steps and move through those salary schedule through the life of this contract, which would be 3 years. It was a great process working with the Board of Ed representative and Superintendent McKinney and Mr. Donovan and the school team to come to this contract. So, I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
so also the union has agreed to the healthcare changes in
Yes.
the second year of the contract,
Yes.
which is why the benefits number went down. If anybody has any questions on the cost sheet, I'm sure one of us can answer them. Alderman Wilshire?
It's not related to budget, but we do have a person participating via Zoom. Alderwoman Elizabeth Liu should not be on here as an alderman. So I'm asking that she take down the alderwoman in front of her name because this is an aldermanic meeting and she is not a sitting alderman. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Would she please change the name on her Zoom? I don't know if Jeff can do that.
No, it's a setting in your Zoom.
There you go. All right. So, are there any questions that you have for the union representative, Mr. Last one, Mr. Alexander? Any questions for him? Yes, Alderwoman Kelly?
Yeah, thank you. I actually was just, we might get snow tonight, so this is kind of perfect. I saw that there was a section that was, it looks like it was added around snow days for administrators. I'm just interested in what we did beforehand, because I think now it says 1 snow day per academic year.
So if we were unable to get to the office, because some of us do, I live in Manchester myself, for example, able to make it to the office because of the amount of snow and the district office is open, we would have to take a personal day or vacation day. We proposed that because through the process of kind of working remotely, we were all able to do our jobs remotely. Many of us work, I should say. Obviously, there are positions within our union that are relied upon to clean snow and take care of facilities during that time frame. Obviously, could not work at home, and the language does state within there that we need to notify our administrator, our supervisor immediately that we plan to do that, and we can be asked for any type of deliverables on what we've done that day during the remote time.
Thank you.
All set?
Yep.
Also, we have a former member of the Board of Education and now an esteemed member of this board,
I didn't want to say hi, I
Timmons.
didn't know if that was appropriate, but hi, Mr. Timmons, how are you?
Alderwoman Timmons, who could also answer questions if you have any for, yes, Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know I'm not part of this committee, but I had a question because I know we're still waiting for the contract for the actual teacher. So I don't know if Mr. Alexander can answer this question, or maybe somebody else. Does this contract that you guys are looking to approve tonight, how does that impact the teacher's contract? Is it totally separate and
No
different?
impact.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't hear your answer. I'm not sure if anyone else did. You
No
guys talk-
impact.
There you go. You were talking at the same time.
It's the mass thing.
It's all good.
Any other questions? Yes,
I
Alderman
have
Sullivan?
several on the cost items. Under other salary costs, specifically the real annual increase over the prior year.
Are you looking at the cost sheet, or you have a
Yeah, the
question?
cost sheet. It's page 3 in the PDF.
Mhm.
It looks like under longevity, that jumps up to 21.6, but overall the increase is 21.2% over 1 year, and then it remains flat. What's the explanation around that?
As part of the contract, or do you want to address that, or?
I'm not sure what the question was again. I'm sorry.
Well, in the longevity, it's budgeted for, looks to be this current fiscal year of 21,950, and then it jumps to 26.6, and then it remains at 26.6.
I believe that's because of the change in how much is being paid for longevity, which,
I have a follow-up question to that as well.
I can find the longevity.
It's about the third paragraph kind of down in that sheet.
Yeah, those are Mr. Dunneman's numbers, I'm not sure. All I can speak to is the longevity within itself. For that, maybe the number of members that are reaching the milestones for the longevity payout.
Right, in Appendix B, there is talk of longevity payments, and most of that is redlined. And I would just be curious to know, that's page 24. We have 15 years at 500, 20 years at 1,200, 25 years at 1,700. I'm just curious to know, out of the, I believe there's 50 some odd people that this contract covers.
No. If you look at the bottom, there's new payments, so.
The new chart.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm looking at.
So, yes, the longevity payments have gone up based on the amount of years. It's simplified, actually, because there's fewer steps, especially for food service. So anybody on the contract, if they have less than 50, if they have 15 years, it's 500. If they have 20 years, it's 1,200, and 25, 1,700. So it also goes up because people have reached that new plateau.
Mm-hmm. I understand that. So essentially before, so if I'm looking at it and I'm reading this correctly, in past contracts, you had 10 years, if you had 10 years of continuous employment, you got $500. Now they're raising that to 15 years. And then if you're at 20 years, that went from 750 up to 1,200, and 25 years went from 1,000 to 1,700.
So we had two groups, because we are a diversified union, we have multiple different bodies. Our food service coordinator group was what you just quoted.
Right.
What we did was we combined that for the entire union, and it became kind of flat across the board. So that everyone now within the union at 15 years longevity receives the $500 payment, and at 20 years receives $1,200, which takes all the complexities out of, there's no more 10-year for one group, 15-year for another, 20 for another. It starts at 15 years for longevity for all bodies, and reduced from 600 for the one body to 500 for every person in the union.
So when they calculate the cost, they base it on the number of people that are going to reach that plateau during the course of the contract.
So am I,
Flat.
sorry.
If it stays flat, it's because nobody else is bumping up in that time frame.
So after, so in fiscal year 22, it's at 4650. In fiscal year 23 and 24, no one else are going into those buckets. So that's why there's no payment, there's no payout.
Right.
do we have an idea of how many people in each bucket, the $500, the $1,200, and the $1,700 are each, out of those 50 people, do we know how many people are in each? Or should I just do the math and,
I don't, that's something that HR and the business department tracks.
Yeah, even probably Mr. Donovan wouldn't know that. But it was calculated when they did the cost sheet.
and then other question around retirement costs, big jump next year, 18.3%, and then at 2.7 and 2.4 respectively.
You're gonna see that in all the contracts because that's driven by the state. That was part of that $2 million bump that we got as a cost from the state of New Hampshire. We have no control over that.
That didn't go into this year's budget? It got kicked to next year?
Evidently, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I mean.
Mr. Griffin is online. Mr. Griffin?
Well, Mr. Chairman, the reason for the increase in fiscal '22 is the employer rates, as you indicated, went up pretty substantially. So there's an increase from fiscal '21 to fiscal '22.
All set on that one?
All set.
And with the employer, by way of clarification, the employer rates are charged by type of employee, in this case, Group 1, for every dollar of payroll. So as you can see, the rate is 14.06. It went up pretty substantially from fiscal '21.
Yeah, that was nothing that was determined by the union.
All right, last question, I think. Insurance benefits, up 8.2% and then fall 13.4% and then go up 5.4%.
You want to address that or you want me to?
Certainly, I mean, I know the drop is due to accepting the new benefits of the city.
Also,
Go ahead, Clarence.
you said she was on. Oh, Kim Kleiner's on here. Kim, do you want to explain that? She might not be connected, but they agreed to the health changes for the city. We're trying to get that on all the new contracts. It substantially lowers the cost to the city. That's why it goes down in the second year. It goes down in the second year because that's the first year they agreed to it. Gloria, do you want to add anything to that, or are you all?
That's true, Alderman Dow. The contract was negotiated that way, and it was negotiated with Health and Human Services included in it, so that's the way it is.
All right.
And that's what they negotiated. We can't change the negotiation.
All right. Alderman Clee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think if I have this correct, the reason why I went down in the first year was because there was a substantial cost savings, but then it goes slightly back up because of the basic rate increase from year to year. There's still a slight rate increase. So I think that's what the 5 point.
Still less expensive than
Where it was
would have been
costing
the
us
other way.
13% every year. Now this one is only 5%. But the drop was because we significantly dropped because they're doing larger co-pays, going from 20 to 25. They go from 250 to 1,500, and so on. So they're doing a higher co-pay. We did the high deductible plan, which saves the city more money.
Is that all set, Alderman Sullivan? Or
Yes.
any other questions? Alderman Kelly?
Thank you. I was just asking, I wanted to ask, I know that, right now it's especially hard to find workers everywhere, especially at the school. And I'm just wondering if the increases that are proposed in this keep us competitive so that we can keep great administrators and food service workers.
Yeah, so part of what took place in the just over a year that we worked through negotiations on this, was there was an initial municipal resources out of Meredith was contracted to do a salary study and looked at surrounding areas, and from that helped to develop where we landed with the labor grades and the salary schedule. And I think that what we developed with the ranges for the various steps keeps us competitive. Obviously, we are close to Massachusetts, so it's very hard to be competitive in Massachusetts, but to surrounding towns and other cities nearby, yes.
Thank you. Is it possible that we could see that study? I'd be really interested to
I
know.
think you could speak to Mr. Donovan about that. He's
Sure.
the keeper of that.
Sure. Thank you.
We'll see if you can get a copy. Any other questions? Yes, Alderman Kathy?
I apologize if this is a dumb question, but
No dumb questions.
Can't say that.
I notice on Appendix A1 that the bumps on the grade went from 1.5% pretty much across the board to a varying degree of 1% all the way up to 6%. Could you speak into how those numbers were arrived at and why, or if there's an algorithm behind that, or?
Sure. So everyone was placed on the salary schedule based on their current salary. We were not able to place people based on line the steps up to experience. That would have been cost prohibitive to do. So there were some positions that I believe that were adjusted differently based on the salary study and where they may have been hired at.
So each one of these positions was sort of individually arrived at rather than just plugging in numbers?
So, so each job was examined to look at where they would be within the labor grade, and some moved to a labor grade that increased them to a different salary schedule than they may have been on based on their current salary. So the alignments were to get them everyone close to the next step in the schedule, and then people will move through the schedule and progress through there based upon what step they're on. Steps 1 through 15 are 2.5%, and 16 through 20 are 2% increases.
Okay, great. Follow up for the steps and the grades. How does one progress through a grade? Because the steps are the steps years. A step is a year.
So yes, a step will be 1 year from wherever you are placed. So if I'm on step 4, I will move to step 5 next year, and 6 so on and after. However, if someone is, forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, if someone is receiving disciplinary action, they can be held on the same step because of performance.
Okay, and then the grades are inside of the steps. The grades are what?
So the grades are, because we are a diverse union, everything from our director of student services to a food service coordinator within the school building. We had to come up with and look at how to group the people appropriately based on what their job kind of entailed, from their responsibilities to their ability to work independently, to kind of their what would be the impact of a decision financially to the school district and the city. All those are factored in, and those were done by the hiring managers and the senior administration at the district sat down. So the superintendent, Mr. Donovan, 2 assistant superintendents, and then again, when I say the hiring managers, I'm talking really about the director of special education, director of technology, food service director, and I'm missing someone in there, so forgive me. To really look at each of the different job categories, from our computer techs through someone like myself, and placing those jobs into those labor grades.
And one more
Just if
follow-up.
I could interject, and you're doing it now, but before, if you're going to be recognized for a follow-up question, and when you answer it, please, for the stenographer, re-say who it is.
Oh,
And
okay, sure.
if you ask for a follow-up, I'll say Alderman Kathy, follow-up. And when you answer, please state your name so that the stenographers have a heck of a time doing this to begin with, so.
My apologies. Can I have a follow-up?
Yes.
Thank you. I noticed, obviously you just mentioned it about if there's a performance issue, they could be held back a step. And I noticed there was a PIP in the contract as well. Is there anything in the positive direction as far as performance markers, or is it everything locked in contractually?
This is Dan Alexander. So, unfortunately, in education, we don't receive performance bonuses and things of that nature. That is kind of what we enter into going into that. Our reward is the kids we work with and the people we work with. And that is right down to the food service worker or the tech who's fixing the computer in the classroom, and the kids are happy that things are back online, or it's not chicken today for lunch, it's pizza, So those are our rewards and our performance bonuses, and that's why we do it. We just try to look at, kind of making sure that we are paid competitively, I think, as Alderman Kelly had asked. And that's really what our contract was about this time, was really examining where are we within surrounding towns and trying to hopefully project out over the next few years what we'll be earning as a salary. So it hopefully would keep some retention of some of our folks within our union, because they know over the next 3 years what their salary would be versus what we're going to negotiate out year to year for an increase. And can I get a better rate somewhere else in another school district?
No, I think to clarify, in any of our city contracts, we don't award bonuses.
Okay.
If you want to if they promote somebody to a next level, now they get to pay at the next level. But
And this is Dan Alexander. So on the labor grades, for this contract, they would remain the same. However, if someone, a supervisor, were to feel that a job should be redesigned and require more responsibility, that would be at the end of the next contract to discuss, like Alderman Dowd said, that it could be, that increase would come because that job now has more responsibility, would move labor grades.
Okay, all right, thank you, I appreciate it.
any other questions, Alderman Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just more for clarification on my part. I worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs and DOD, so I worked for the federal government, and we had steps and grades as well. But our steps worked a little differently, I think, than yours did. Ours 1 through 4, we got every year. Then actually 4 through 7 every other year, and then 8 through 10, and we only went up to 10. We got every 4 years, I think it was. Yours are every single year they get it?
Yeah, Dan Alexander. Yes, the step is every year, and it's based upon that year to year of service.
Just one.
Follow up, Alderman Clee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned that if they're disciplinary, that they could be held back. Is it just disciplinary, or is it just that they didn't really meet the full requirement of the job? I don't know if that would be considered disciplinary, or just maybe they need more education or so on.
So again, Dan Alexander. So within the contract, our body is evaluated every year based on performance, and performance evaluation should be not the first time that an employee hears of corrective action that they need or improvement that they need. It should be an ongoing process, because all of our folks develop goals with their supervisors at the beginning of every year to work towards that goal at the end of the year, and that's part of the district's professional development as well. And you have to be at a certain spot within that disciplinary action in order for that raise to stop, and that is significant to, you're either improving or you'll probably be leaving as the next step, and you'll be much involvement. So we didn't want to make it seem like everybody just gets the raise every year, but we're hoping that everybody's learning and improving and doing what's best for the city and the school district to continue to make progress and learn, but also have a piece in there so that if someone was really underperforming and within that disciplinary area, that there's accountability as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting discussions around cost items, and then specifically redlined items.
Well, yes, because if the cost items hadn't changed, then it's nothing new to the contract.
So if there's nothing, follow up, please.
Yes, follow up.
Thank you. If it is not redlined, I cannot, it's already baked into the contract. It is non-negotiable at this point.
Right, because the Board of Education already agreed to that.
Okay.
So at the end, when we take a vote, it's either to approve the entire contract or not approve it. We can't renegotiate any of the lines, including any of the cost items. We can just say yes or no. Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we vote, because there are some items in the contract that I had requested some information on, what is the process for that?
Who did you request them
Is
from?
the, specifically the longevity, how many people fall into those buckets? And then also the, I believe that was it for that.
All right. so
And then there
we
was
will
just a
have-
follow-up item to get those people.
We will have Mr. Donovan get us that answer tomorrow, because this is going to be on the Board of Aldermen agenda for tomorrow for final approval. Because when we get any contract in, any of the contracts, we only have 30 days to get from the time we receive it till the time we approve it. Anything beyond that requires an approved extension between the Board of Aldermen and the union, or the Board of Education, I'm not sure which, but we can't just arbitrarily delay it. Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you. When did that start? Did it start on the first reading of Jan the 11th, or when we actually received the contract? When did that 30 days start?
That's a good question, which I asked Corporation Counsel, and I believe, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's when it's received by City Hall,
Thank you.
but definitely no later than the first reading, but I'll double check that too with Attorney Bolton.
Good glory.
Yes, Alderman Timmons.
Yes, thank you. Just for clarification, we cannot renegotiate the contract. We only say yes and no to what was already negotiated.
Right.
And I've never heard that we go back and renegotiate the Board of Aldermen. We'll go back and renegotiate any items contract. We either can say yes or no. Is that true or not true?
Yes, it's true. We cannot negotiate the contract. That's only from the Board of Education. If the contract were not approved by the Board of
Exactly,
Aldermen, it
okay.
would go
I just
back to the
want
Board of
clarification.
Education. And they would have to renegotiate something.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Alderman Claffey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we know the date that, if in fact, the 30 days clock started when City Hall received it, do we know when that date is? Is it in the contract somewhere? or do
No,
we have-
but I would say if the first reading was the last Board of Aldermen meeting, so,
11 January
excuse me?
was,
January 11th was the last Alderman meeting.
So it has to be final approval by February 11th, at the latest.
At the latest. If indeed the first reading was the clock starting to tick
Right.
on the 30s. Okay, thank you.
I think it was received just before that anyway, so. Any other questions? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is for final approval, to recommend final approval of the full Board of Aldermen on R 22-001, approving the cost items of a collective bargaining agreement between the National Board of Education and the National Association of School Administrators and Supervisors, American Federation of School Administrators, AFL-CIO, from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024, and related transfers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
nay.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I have a vote of 6 yeas, 1 nay.
2 nays.
Motion,
2 nays.
2 nays, excuse me, that's why we do it.
Thank
All right.
Wait,
So it's 5.
that's,
Oh,
It has to
yeah,
be-
Alderman Sullivan and Kathy voted nay, which will give us 5 yeas, 2 nays, motion carries.
okay. All right, next item, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Also before us, excuse me, is R-22-002, authorizing the expenditure of $1,810 from the Conservation Fund. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage
Okay, motion is to recommend final passage. And I believe Alderman Jettie would like to speak to that. Yes? No?
I was asked to sponsor this. I'm the liaison to the Conservation Commission, but I think Mr. Sullivan is on.
I
He
did
told me
see.
he was going to be here.
Yes, Mr. Sullivan is on.
Good evening, committee members, members of the board. Great to see you. I'll do a brief introduction of this. It's a relatively straightforward request, a supplemental request for an appropriation from the Conservation Fund. For those that are unfamiliar with the fund, Conservation Commission currently holds about $1.6 million. That is the result of many transfers as a result of land use change taxation. And that fund is used periodically to not only maintain Conservation Commission properties, but also to make new investments and easements. This particular request is related to the Joyce Park Wildlife Sanctuary off of Burke and Ingle Street. Back in 2021, the alderman approved an authorization of $24,100 for some fairly substantial trail improvements at that site, in addition to some substantial poison ivy spraying that was to be done to remove some invasives there. After the spraying activity, the company performing the spraying identified additional area and respraying that needed to be done that fell outside the scope of the contract, and therefore made a request for us to authorize $1,810 to complete that spraying, all in the interest of making the sanctuary more walkable and for the visitors that go to it. Outside of that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee might have, but this is really just continuing the preservation and enhancement efforts at this important area.
Any questions for Mr. Sullivan? Not Alderman Sullivan, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you for
Yes,
clarifying.
Alderman Kathy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. More of just an understanding of the work that you do. Is this a recurring expense or type of thing that you do, since you mentioned that you noticed that there was more work that needed to be done after the initial? So is this more of a, this happens very frequently, or is this more of a second part of a bigger job?
No, great question. And the way I would answer it is by saying that for many of the Conservation Commission easements and properties, there's an active sort of maintenance and management plan. Joyce Park Wildlife Sanctuary is actually one that doesn't have a plan in place. And the benefit to those plans is that they actually give the Conservation Commission its own unique authority to approve expenditures for that maintenance and management. Because a management plan is not in place, all expenditures must go through the Board of Aldermen for approval, regardless of the amount of expenditure or the amount of the request. I would say it is a recurring issue, but there's been more attention paid to Joyce Park over the last 2 years. And as a result, new recognition that this has become a problem at the site. I would say that, like many invasives, this will likely become an ongoing issue, or is an ongoing issue as the park gets used more frequently. But our hope is that if we're making more consistent investments into removing those invasives, that they can be resolved, and perhaps it will become a minimal issue as time goes on. Does that answer?
It does. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All set. Any other questions for Mr. Sullivan? Any other questions on the motion? So the motion before us is to, on R-22-002, authorize the expenditure of $1,810 from the Conservation Fund. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. All right, new business ordinances,
There are none?
table in committee,
There is none.
general discussion. Anyone have anything that they would like to discuss? Alderman Bryan?
Yeah, I think some of the new aldermen bring up some very good questions, but I just want to probably state something. When it gets into, when the city and some of our unions get into negotiations, there are other legitimate boards equal in authority, such as us. In other words, we're not going to put on white hats and all become fire chiefs or brandish weapons and become police chiefs and take over a bank robbery situation. So therefore, we depend solely on what these particular, such as the police commission in that example, or the fire commission or what they come up with. But there is autonomy with the school board. And there is a good reason why the Board of Aldermen do not negotiate contracts. I personally would not want to do it because I think we would be here 24/7. But anyways, we allow them to negotiate as best they possibly can to bring back the finished product for our perusal, whether we support it or not, and that is our right. But we can't interject, and for good reason, because then we'll be in violation of unfair labor practice. And we got to keep that in mind when it comes down to that. And if you don't understand, I would probably, some questions you can refer to corporate counsel. But basically, the unions come up, and I can say, being a former firefighter, they negotiate with the Board of Fire Commissioners and the chief. And I think you can see the complexity if you put the Board of Aldermen and negotiating with them into it, okay? So basically, we take so much within reason of what these particular boards do and recognize their legitimate authority and allow them to do that. So it does sound, I understand the questions and everything, well stated, but for good reasons why the Board of Aldermen doesn't get 100% too deep into the weeds on these particular things. And that's why those people were elected by the vote of the people into those particular boards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alderman Kathy and then Alderman Timmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a clarification, since still learning. Tabled in committee means an ordinance or resolution that was previously tabled in this committee?
Yes.
That would be brought up again for vote?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Timmons?
Yes, Chairman, I'd like to piggyback on what Alderman O'Brien said. Those negotiations was not done in a vacuum. They were months with the union as well as with the human services and the team on the other side, the administrative team. So they're not done in a vacuum. It takes months and hours of negotiation to come up with what we did come up with. The new board members to know that those negotiations was not done in a vacuum. They was vetted throughout the process before we even came up with a final contract. So that's all my 2 cents is just that it wasn't done in a vacuum. We spent hours, I mean literally months and hours on those negotiation teams. And sometimes we have an impasse and sometimes we don't. Just by, we just want to pay these people. We vetted, we looked at other school districts, we looked at other pays, we looked at what you can get and what we'll get in the future, what you wasn't getting, and all of that was accompanied and how we came up with the contract that we came up with. And we voted on that based on the lawyers' input, human resources, the district, everybody, the superintendent. So it wasn't done in a vacuum. I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Alderman Como.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to add on to what Alderman O'Brien was just saying. There is a certain level of trust into some of these boards and commissions to negotiate these types of things. But at the same time, the public has also asked us to oversee. So it's important that we also ask questions when they need to be asked and not to just pass things through because, an earlier body approved it. Otherwise, the law wouldn't require our approval in the first place. So I do think that it's important that we take the time to things that we think are important to make sure that we get it right and to make sure that whoever approved it before it got to us also did it right.
Okay. Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To speak to those comments, I understand, we were asked to vote on the cost items of the contract, and when I saw, it's been my experience, be it managing my home budget or a business budget, that if there are double-digit increases, I ask why. That was a simple question of I just wanted some understanding of what that was. So those are the reasons for my questions.
Yeah, I didn't see any questions that are out of line.
Okay.
Fair questions. And we are gonna be getting more contracts come through, probably a lot more complex than this one, which is basically fairly straightforward. And there'll be other things with a lot more cost changes. But for instance, the last fireman's contract was years in negotiations. In the past, we've had issues with teachers' contracts. And at one point, we tried to have a meeting of the Board of Ed and the Board of Aldermen to talk about it, and we got slapped by the legal that it's not allowed. We cannot step in the middle of negotiations. That's an unfair labor practice. And you can go to jail for that kind of stuff. So we'll stay out of that realm. The next contract that's going to probably be coming before us is going to be the supervisors in the police department, not the patrolmen, but the civilian supervisors. So when we get the contract, I would suggest if you have questions similar to the questions you had this evening on the longevity, it's okay to reach out to the Mr. Donovan in this case, or the chief, if it's the police, or probably the assistant chief, deputy chief rather, Testaverde, I think. So you can call them, get answers to your questions, and be ready when we come before budget. You'll have, either you'll know the answer to the question, or you'll have a bigger question. So, any other? Yes, Alderman Tebow?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a question not even related to this stuff, but it seems like the audio is from our side, because it's hard to hear these people that are coming in on the audio, and I know we're going to have tons of people speaking tomorrow night. Is there some way that we can ensure that, because I'm hearing, I don't know about you guys, I'm hearing in and out on every single person, so it can't be their audio, it's got to be somewhere on City Hall's side on ours.
We noticed that early on, before the meeting started.
Okay.
It's an issue with Zoom.
Okay. Thank you.
Wilshire?
Mr. Chair, I think that at the start of the meeting, Jeff did say.
Yep, there you go.
Please be recognized before we speak.
So he said it was going to be a rough meeting.
Please be asked to be recognized before you ask a question or speak. Alderman Wilshire?
I was just gonna say the same thing. The videographer said the internet was slow. And, you know, it hopefully won't be tomorrow night, because I expect a few visitors tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Yeah. And tomorrow, if we have a ton of people on Zoom, it could be an issue, because your bandwidth is an issue. But that's nothing that we have control over.
Thank you.
All right? Anyone else? Alderman
I was just
Kelly?
going to comment on that as well, just that we've had pretty good, this is one of the only meetings that I can remember where we've had this issue, but if people turn off their video, that will help with bandwidth issues. So if you're not in the room, you're on Zoom, if you turn off your video, that'll help a lot.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other?
Alderman Como.
Did you have something else, Alderman Como, or did you not put your hand down?
Yeah, to apologize, it sounded like you recognized me. That's the only reason I spoke. So we can blame that on the internet also. I apologize.
All right. No problem. All right, so it's general discussion. Public comment. Nobody here. And Ms. Ortolano, you had your hand up.
Yes, good evening. This is the worst audio-video meeting I've experienced. So
Identify
it's
yourself and address.
rough for all of us, and I
Did you
did
identify
text around
yourself?
and email. Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street.
Thank you.
A couple of things. I'm wondering if anyone is tracking the expenditures of sick time associated with the new, I believe in December, to allow those vaccinated to not have to use their sick time if they catch COVID. And I'm interested in that because it turns out this next variant that we're dealing with ended up being very contagious, whether you were vaccinated or not. The Board of Health had 2 hospital executives at the meeting on Wednesday, I believe it was, and they both said that their hospitalizations are 50-50, vaccinated and unvaccinated, that it really didn't make a difference and they weren't seeing any impact or significant difference in the health between were boosted and those that weren't. So this is an equal opportunity infector. And I'm wondering what the financial impact is of that policy. I was not a strong backer. Also, I'm trying to get financial reports for the Board of Public Works. I think we are missing an opportunity to have the kind of oversight our elected bodies should be doing when it comes to finances. The fire department and police department produce monthly financial reports that are very well done and excellent. And the police department them at their monthly meetings. And I've been trying to get a hold of monthly or any kind of financial reporting for the Board of Public Works because the city charter states the Board of Public Works will follow and track expenditures. That's part of, I think, chapter or subsection 61. And I think we have an obligation when you $15 million organization to do that kind of tracking. And I would like the aldermen to support me on, recommending financial reviews start happening and boards start becoming a little more educated about the money and the public be able to have access to these reports. The Board of Public Works meetings have changed to early afternoon and I haven't been able to go for 3 months and I won't be able to go any longer. That's fine. They're not geared toward public to participate anyway, and there's no interest to allow the public to participate, but I would like the financial reports, and I think it's fair
30 seconds.
To help me get those. I would really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So relative to the first question you had on how many people, I would direct you to Director Kleiner. Anything on the financial end, those reports all go to Mr. Griffin and question to him. I don't think any of those answers reside here on the Board of Aldermen. All right, anyone else? Public comment? Nope. Remarks by Alderman. Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate giving me the time. I just wanted to remind the public that tomorrow at Temple Beth Abraham, there is a walk-in clinic for vaccines for all ages. It's Tuesday, January 25th, 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. All ages, including children ages 5 and older, as well as boosters, initial shots, second shots. Registration is not required. It's all open to the public. You just go to the back parking lot and enter the social hall from there. This is being offered in partnership with the state of New Hampshire and the Department of Health.
Okay. Any other remarks by Alderman? Alderman Cassidy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd first like to apologize for my tardiness. I could not find the keys to my truck. And I'd like to thank the aldermen for being patient with us as we learn the process. Appreciate allowing us to wade through and figure out what's what and ask a lot of questions. I tend to be a very inquisitive person, so there'll be more of them, I assure you. So I just really appreciate it, and thank you. So,
and again, there's no such question as a dumb question. If you want something answered, just let us know, and we'll try and answer it. If we can't, we'll steer you to the right person. On any of these bills, contracts, or anything that comes before budget, if you have a question, you can call me. I can either put you in touch with who should have the answer, or if I know the answer, I can help you with it. I'm more than willing to do that. So I think you all have my phone number. All right. Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to say that for the second consecutive year, Nashua Rotary has sold out 1,000 tickets for our annual BMW raffle. We just sold out today. So I just wanted to recognize Nashua's Rotary Club for doing that. They're going to raise all sorts of great money for area charities. So that happened today. We sold the 1,000th ticket.
That's good. Good luck to anybody that bought a ticket.
Yeah.
Alderman Jettie.
Yeah, I would like to acknowledge the fact that Alderman Sullivan was one of the co-chair people of that raffle, the Rotary raffle, and was he spearheaded the sales of all of these tickets. So I think as we get further into the budget, as we find shortfalls, Sullivan would have some great ideas of how we could raise some extra money without going to the taxpayers.
You have the challenge, Alderman Sullivan.
Duly noted.
I'm not sure we could raffle off.
That's a good thing. Any other, before we,
Yeah.
Alderman Wiltshire?
I didn't hear Alderman Sullivan say challenge accepted or anything.
I just made a note.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, I also have Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes, Alderman Dow, you were cutting in and out. Hear a lot of what was going on. Alderwoman Clee said something about, was there a walk-in at the clinic? Can an individual or can the public just walk in to the clinic tomorrow?
Yes, Alderman Clee?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for asking me to clarify that. It's a walk-in for the entire public. You don't have to be a Nashua resident. It's a walk-in clinic. It's available for, all vaccines are available, including for children ages 5 and older, and boosters for those eligible. Just walk in, go to the back of the temple, and enter Social Hall from there. This is the second one they've done, and it was extremely successful. I think they had like 230 people the last time around, and they're holding it from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's quite a length of time, so.
Everybody all set?
Thank you.
Motion, Alderman O'Brien?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
A motion on the floor is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 8:01 p.m.